offer you a pay cut and an opportunity. If you are good and you believe in yourself, you will follow me. And if you don't, you need to stay where you are.
But I know we're going to have another episode for that. But just go ahead and let them know, man, because you definitely rocking the brand.
All that money we're utilizing it to the best of our ability. So we're getting the most out of it.
It's okay to have different people who are SMEs in different areas to be able to lean on and not feel afraid that, oh, I'm gonna be vulnerable, or I'm gonna look like I'm not the person that is able to run everything, when that's not how companies are scaled. They can't run everything. That's why you need other people.
So I'd say I had about 40 to 50 employees at that point in time. And in our industry, that meant I had about 20 key employees and then 20 to 30 people that same hard hat, different name. They were just rotating through.
Some nice posters up in my office at work. At the office, be like, when drivers come in, be like, winning is a direct result of overcoming failure. Man,
Perfect.
What's up? Welcome to the Forte podcast. I am your co-host, Dominic Epps.
And I'm your co-host, Randall Monfiston.
And once again, we are here to dive into your lane of greatness to discover what comes easy for you that may not be easy for all others.
Everyone's a genius, from the 9-to-5 employee to the Fortune 500 billionaire. We're here to highlight those attributes through dialogue and interviews with amazing guests. All
right, so once again, we have another fire episode, another amazing guest, but I have one question for you, Forteers.
What's that, bro?
What's your forte? What's up, brother? How you, man? You good?
I'm doing good, man. Can't complain. What about yourself?
Hey, man, doing well. We just came back from anniversary. So that was pretty good, man. That was pretty good, man. Salute the queen. She surprised me, man. And so thank God for 16 years, man. Yeah.
Blessings, man. Congrats.
Yeah, man. Went to Houston, man, and let me tell you, man, when we went to the Breakfast Club, brother, and we ate, I do not recall us catching the itis when we left.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I
don't know, man. It felt as if every place we ate at, like afterwards, it was just slump cam. Right? So I don't know, man. I don't know. What's going on, man? What they putting in their food in Houston, man?
I don't know. Some MSG, some GMO. I don't know what they put in there. But whatever it is, you're probably not supposed to have it too often. So
this guy say
glad
GMO.
You enjoy it. Yeah.
Hey, look, man. How was your weekend, though, bro? How was everything?
It's good. As we spoke, Big gave a little teaser. Just speaking to my transition from 9-to-5 to full-time entrepreneur. We are going to do an episode on that where we dive deep about that transition, but just continue the hiring process for my trucking company, getting drivers through the background check. Went to Vegas to go see another individual's operation on how they run things, kind of take tools from their bag to be able to implement over here where I'm at. So yeah. It's been good. It's been eye-opening from the grind, and looking forward to continued success and journey.
Yes, sir, man. Salute to you too, man, because that's a big move, man. That's a real big step, man. So just in case you are wondering, what's going on with this truck that Randall has on his shirt, man, go ahead and talk to him about the company. I know we're going to have another episode for that, but just go ahead and let him know, man, because you definitely rocking the brand.
All right. I'm gonna get you a little tidbit of my interview process when I'm talking to interviewees, right? So I'm Randall Monfiston, the CEO and owner of Gift Transport Inc. GIFT is an acronym which stands for Generating Income for Them. The reason I chose that to be the name of the company, I wanted something to be at the forefront of everyone's mind, not only the driver's mind, but as well as my mind, whenever we're focusing on the mission. When somebody gets off the beaten path, I like to realign them or get them back on path by saying, what are you doing this for? Most people are not coming to work or grinding just for themselves. They're grinding for significant other, children, charity, church, family, whatever have you. So I like to use that as a way to keep people focused on the mission, and that's to be able to move freight safely and efficiently.
Listen, I don't have anything else to say, but salute. Matter of fact, let's
Yeah.
come on and bring on today's guest, man, because
Yes,
that
sir.
was
Yes,
that
sir.
was dope,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Who
So,
would not want to work for you after hearing that introduction,
yeah.
right? So
So I
yeah,
like to pay a little bit of homage to this upcoming guest. I've watched him from afar. We've had a couple conversations about entrepreneurship and just his experience from company picnics. The company I just transferred from to be able to start my own company was created. Co-founder, co-owner, chief operating officer Phil Hubbel. Please come off the mic and tell everyone what's your forte.
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. And by the way, I love the name of your company. Great
Thank you.
acronym. So, my forte, quite honestly, is small business. My forte is finding the right partners to partner up with. Um, Running, I think probably my best asset is I'm good with running a financially sound business and just I've learned kind of the processes that I can use for any type of industry. I've worked in steel. I've had a welding and machining company, and I've worked in the white collar business of government contracting. So, just I think having the right principles in place is what my forte is.
Got it. Got it. Got it. You see what I'm saying? That right,
that's
that
good.
little tidbit. It wasn't much, but it was a lot, right? And little things like that. Each time I talk to him, it's little nuggets. It's like you go to Pop Pop and he talks to you for 5 minutes and you just walk away with years worth of information that you had no preparation for. So yeah. Phil, again, I didn't get to tell you. I think I did, but I just want to reiterate in front of the guests that I really appreciate you, you and Tyler, on how you were able to provide such a family oriented culture in Crimson Phoenix, even as it scaled. And that's a true testament to both of your leadership. And Tyler did mention on the call how he was able to approach you in a way to say, "Hey, I'm not seasoned enough to be CEO, but Phil, I want you to be a partner with me as I grow this company," and that's dope. So it allowed me to approach a lot of things a little bit more humbly when taking on this position, this company that I'm creating, and realizing that I'm not going to know it all. And it's okay to have different people who are SMEs in different areas to be able to lean on and not feel afraid that, oh, I'm gonna be vulnerable, or I'm gonna look like I'm not the person that is able to run everything, when that's not how companies are scaled. They can't run everything. That's why you need other people. So yeah.
Man, man,
You're absolutely right.
this is gonna be good, man. So
Yeah.
Phil, just want to get into your background, right? So
Okay.
if you could just let our viewers know a little bit about where you're from and how was life growing
Okay.
up in your
So
household.
I'm from Southwest Ohio, but based right in between Dayton and Cincinnati, from a small town. Quite honestly, I grew up small town farm community, pretty poor growing up. Family didn't really become somewhat successful until I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school. Little bit of a dysfunctional family. Um, that's kind of my background as I started.
Gotcha. When you say dysfunctional, could you elaborate just a little bit? Because certain people can look at that, right, and kind of have different meaning of what dysfunctional is. So do you mind elaborating why you say dysfunctional?
Well, that's fair. I think my parents were pretty dysfunctional. Let's just say that
Yep. Yep.
lived in a pretty tough environment growing up. And I think, quite honestly, that can do one of two things for you. You can either use that as an excuse and follow that pattern, or you can put that chip on your shoulder and prove that that's not who you're going to be in life. And that's the path I chose.
Wow. It kind of sounds a little bit of I can see now why you and Tyler connected pretty good because he kind of had a similar story, and when we interviewed him on the podcast.
Let me be very honest. If I can step into this, that is
Yes, sir.
exactly the truth, and that's exact. So the one thing I've noticed, and the one thing that really has helped me in business, is I've been really good at identifying good partners, and I find that I go back to that guy that didn't have a chance. Right? Um, Tyler came from the same kind of background I did, and he actually worked for me when he was in high school. So I started working in the steel plant when I was in high school. I did it as part-time work. I had most of Tyler's family had worked for me. His father had an alcohol issue. Good guy, had a tough time with alcohol. Tyler lived the kind of life that I lived. When he came to work for me at 15, steel plant is not an easy life, right? It's downturns are 16-hour days. It's dirty, you're wet, you come out, all you can see is the whites of your eyes and your teeth. Um, and that kid showed up every day. He just had, he reminded me of me. So we developed a mentorship. He would come and work for me every summer. He went off to college. He became the first person in his family to graduate from college. So he would work for me in the summer, and then I would write him a check at the end of the year to pay for his books. So there was a mentor mentee relationship through school, and he still came back and worked for me. I mean, that kid worked Christmas break, spring break. He just didn't get to enjoy his 16s through 20s just like I did, right? You were figuring out how to survive and be something that no one thought you could be. And then Tyler graduated and went off into the defense contracting business. Um, he learned that business. He would still come home when he visited his family. He would come home and stay with me and then go visit his family. And then he would head back to DC. At some point in time, I had sold my business, the first business that I had ever run, my first baby. I had sold that. I was working for the company that I had sold it to, and learned just what Randall said. I learned some really great lessons from the from the people that I sold my business to. Always, never be afraid to ask questions, because truly, when you're a business owner, you're a jack of all trades, master of none.
Mm.
You need to know a little bit about everything, and you need to find people that are experts in other fields and have enough knowledge to keep them accountable. So Tyler gets into this business. He starts talking to me. We talked this business into existence for about 2 years. And then one day he just said, "Look, Phil, I'm going to start this business. I'd like to start it with you. I don't have the capital. I don't really know how to run a business, but I know this industry." And he said, "I've got one other guy that I want to bring on board that would be key for me." So I said, "Well, bring him in. Let's have a talk and let's see how this works out." So when they came in, I gave them, this is Phil's, I would say this is one of my famous lines for people. "I will offer you a pay cut and an opportunity. If you are good, you'll follow me. And if you don't believe in yourself, you need to stay where you're at." So they both
Woo.
came in. They
Hold on,
That's
Phil.
no,
Hold
no,
on, Phil. I ain't mean to pause you. Hold on. That was a
no, no,
line.
no, go,
Can,
go.
can you repeat that? Because that was a gem right there.
Yes,
I just want you to repeat that. Just want you to repeat that.
I will offer you a pay cut and an opportunity. If you are good and you believe in yourself, you will follow me. And if you don't, you need to stay where you are.
Wow.
mm,
You have to show that you're going to sacrifice, because that's how I started my business. Quite honestly, that's how I got into mine. So I won't jump around. So I told both of them, we're going to be the lowest paid people in our company. If we're going to start this, because Tyler said it's going to take $1 million to start this, and he was pretty close right on. I said, you're going to sacrifice, and it's going to take us, if we grow this, it's going to take us 3 to 4 years. So if you haven't lived your life to be able to take advantage of this opportunity, now's a good time to get out. Because don't come to me in 2 years and say, "Hey, Phil, I need more money." We're going to agree to this now. And they both absolutely readily agreed. We did things a little bit different. My way is, you don't get company cars. You don't go buy a big office building. You don't spend money on big lunches and all that. You treat your business like it's your baby. And that is, that baby gets fed first. That baby gets taken care of first. You get taken care of last.
Hold on,
And
man.
it, yep, yep.
Man. This is good already. Hold on, Phil. You
Okay.
dropping a whole lot, man. Wow. Listen, I put in the description. Make sure, make sure you all are taking notes And I'm not sure if you all got any of that, what he just said. Randall, what you got, man? Because that was I didn't mean to pause him, but I just had to for a moment because this is good, and this is going to continue to be good. Randall, anything you want to add before we just continue to let Phil, continue to cut him
Oh,
loose?
let the genius go.
All right, let's go. Let's go.
Why are you stopping?
Well,
the gravy's
I like
flowing.
it when
Let
he
it
does
flow.
that.
No. Here's the reason, right? Because I just want people to catch some of the things that he said, and I want to make sure, because I'm like his amen corner right now, right? And every now and then, your amen corner gonna have you to repeat what you just said, right? And there were some nuggets that I don't want anyone to fly past, right? He talked about sacrifice. He addressed sacrifice, right? But he was honest up front. It kind of reminded me of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Like his rich dad telling him, "Hey, all right, I'll give you a pay cut. Now, if you want to make more money, I can give you that. But this is pretty much this is. I don't know if you all wrote a book yet, but this is good. All right, back to you, Phil. Back to you. All right, you got it.
Thank you. So again, they both agreed, and so what's the most important thing when you start a business? You don't want to run out of money, right? The things that made me successful when I started out was making sure that I didn't give away money. I believe that interest is the eighth wonder of the world. If it's working for you, you win in this life. If it's working against you, you're paddling upstream, right? So we don't borrow money to cover our payroll. We keep that money in so that we can, as we grow, what Randall said is the truth. If you're growing, your checking account's going down. And you need to make sure that you're not giving away 3% on the front end and then giving up 3% on the back end by taking your pay early from one of these pay places. So doing that saves you so much money in the long run, but you have to be disciplined and be willing to sacrifice in the beginning to make that happen. Both of those guys were willing to do that. And then again, if you follow that formula, 3 to 4 years down the road, your business will be successful. But you have to be able to afford. So not only do you have to be disciplined in your business life, you have to be disciplined in your personal life. You can't have a bunch of debt. It would be hard to walk into a business and start a business and be in debt personally. I think it would drop your success rate down considerably.
Wow.
So for those guys, they fit the criteria for Phil. I have it's just a small niche, but those are things I'm looking for in a partner. One, I knew Tyler was going to work. He vouched for Brad's work ethic. So, I saw Tyler in action. They agreed to take the pay cut. They worked hard. Randall, I really appreciate what you said. One of our goals, two things we wanted to do. You want to treat everybody that works for you like your family. And two, you want to give back, right? Charitable was something that we wanted to make sure that we could find great causes with our employees so that they could be a part of it and know that they were a part of helping make donations, do good things. So it was it was an easy run. At that point in time, it had been my third business. So I kind of had the formula down and I already had the money to start the business. But what I asked Brad and Tyler to do was exactly what I did when I started my business. So like Tyler, and it's funny, the coincidences in our life, he just did it younger than I did. So I think he'll end up being more successful than I am in the long run, hopefully. When I first started and I was working in the steel plant myself at Tyler's age, the one thing I noticed was, for lack of a better term, the smartest, hardest working guy that ran the company, this guy, that generally a hillbilly, that was working 90 hours a week, getting paid whatever he was getting paid. And there was some owner in there that was killing it off of his work and his knowledge. And I heard from so many of these guys when I'm 15, 16 years old, Phil, if I ever get the chance, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to take, and I used to think to myself, you're never going to get that chance. You don't live the life to be able to do that. Like, how are you going to cover payroll for 30 days? How are you going to get a loan from a bank if you need to do this? You have to have some self-sacrifice in your personal life. So I took that away when I was 15, 16 years old. Now I left, tried to work my way through school. That I was miserable, ended up going into the military. And when I came back home, I went back in and started working in a steel plant. But I lived by that rule. So I started working and I ran a company, same as every one of those other guys that I had worked with when I was a kid. But what I did differently is we lived very frugally and I saved back. And one day, a guy that I had worked with for years, it was just a clerk at AK Steel, had become a purchaser. He called me and said, Phil, we need a non-union labor company. The company that we had just got in big trouble and we're throwing them out. Do you think that you could do this? And I said, absolutely, I can. Wow. So I had the money to be able to, I mean, look, I bought a pickup truck that wouldn't pass E-check, right? Shovels, buckets. It was very humble beginnings. But the other thing that I did was I didn't leave the other company. I was just starting, so this business didn't have full-time work yet. So I said, look, I don't want to leave you in a bad spot. I'll continue to work for you when I'm not working this if you want, and train my successor. So, I was putting in 80-hour weeks at that point in time, but I also wasn't taking anything out of my business. Everything that I was making was going right back into it.
Wow.
2 years later, and again, so I'm paying myself about $1,000. It's enough to live off of. We had just started a family, my wife and I. We had just started a family and we were living okay, but we certainly weren't living high on the hog, right? 2 years later, the same purchasing guy comes back and says, hey, look, Phil, we've kind of changed philosophy. We don't want a bunch of specialists. We just want one-stop shop companies. I don't think you can afford to do that, but you do good. You want me to help you hook up with another company? And I said, tell me what I need, and I think I can do this. And he said, well, Phil, you're going to need vac trucks. You're going to need wash trucks. You're going to need blasters. I'm like, okay, give me 30 days. So again, I'm paying myself $50,000 a year, and I wrote checks for $250,000 to buy my equipment because I had it there. I was living for the next opportunity. That
That
started, yes.
Hold up, Phil, real quick.
Oh,
That
man.
one,
Yes.
that one you got to break down. Help,
Okay.
because I
Okay.
caught it. Just bring it back and
Mhm.
say you was looking for the next opportunity. You was looking for the next opportunity. Help break that down. Like what does that mean in the most simplistic way so people can fully understand?
So, so again, I'm growing, but I'm growing small. There are other opportunities to grow. Um, well, there were two reasons why I lived the way I lived. The other reason was steel is an industry that goes from 0 to 100 and 100 to 0 faster than any industry I've ever worked in. When you're working 70 to 90 hours a week. And when they stop, there's no work at all. And the other thing that I learned when I was in high school and college working in there is you have all these guys that were owners of these companies and they're making a killing. They're driving fancy cars, they're buying race cars, they're buying big houses, they're living large. And the minute that steel plant shut down and it started back up, it was all new owners because those guys went bankrupt. And I just remember saying to myself, if I ever get the opportunity, I'm not going to do this once. I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times. I'm not going to let a downturn keep me from continuing. I'm going to do this for 20 years if I can. So, two reasons. One, I wanted to make sure that if there was an opportunity to grow my business, I didn't want to go to a bank and borrow money. I just feel like you're giving money away when you do that, if you can help it. So I just always kept money back all year long. And at the end of the year, I would put it right back into my business. So each year I grew and I doubled. So you also have higher payroll, right? At the time I had the opportunity, I had the cash in the bank. It was the perfect time of year. It was towards the end of the year. I bought all that equipment. It, I will say this, writing a check for $152,000 for a vac truck when you're making $50,000 a year, as much as I love paying my bills early, that was a tough check to write.
Man,
That was 3 years worth of money at that point in time. But when I paid for that with cash, the next year I bought two more vac trucks. So now I pay 300,000 in cash. And now, you know what happens after 3 years of not taking any money for myself? Those three vac trucks and that equipment now pays for the next one. I don't have to come out of pocket anymore. At that
got it.
point, as I grow, I'm doubling my size each year, but I'm not taking any loans. I'm not taking money early. All that money is we're utilizing it to the best of our ability. So we're getting the most out of it. So I just kept reinvesting, right? I kept feeding my baby. I just kept paying that baby and not myself. And my wife was very supportive, but I can remember her saying about year 4, I keep hearing our accountant, I keep hearing all these people say how successful you are, but everyone that I know has better cars and better houses than us.
Mm,
And I said, and you know, that's fair,
mm.
because she lived it with me. She didn't see me, she's basically, she takes care of our house. She takes care of our baby. We only had one child at the time. She's doing everything, and our life isn't getting a whole lot better. But I'll give you my other favorite saying. You ever read the book, The Tortoise and the Hare? The tortoise always wins the race. So I said, if you will just trust me for 2 or 3 more years, I promise you, we're going to get ahead of this race. Now, the other thing that I did during this time, even though I wasn't paying myself, was I always made sure that I profit shared my employees, which was something I never saw in that industry before. So when we had our first downturn, life got ugly for us. I was the only, so I'd say I had about 40 to 50 employees at that point in time. And in our industry, that meant I had about 20 key employees and then 20 to 30 people that same hard hat, different name. They were just rotating through because it's a tough business. Not everybody wants to do it. Um, when we had to shut down, all 20 of my employees showed up to work for me that next Monday. I kept my 20 people on my payroll and paid them 40 hours a week, kept their insurance going. We cleaned all of our equipment. We were the only group in that plant that was there. So the plant was still running. If they had an emergency, we were the one stop shop. So what happened for me after, I think that lasted about 4 months. And I had the money in the bank account. So what does that do? That proves to my employees, you are my family. I am going to take care of you. Anyone can take care of you during a good time, and anybody can say that. But when times are bad, I'm still, by the way, let's look through this plant. We're the only ones here. Now, we would take a call out. We played a lot of cards. um, but what it did for us was, one, not only did my group know, hey, this is the group, I'm staying here. This place is going to take care of me. But two, everyone else that was in that plant, that was in the industry, saw the same thing. So my recruiting, it was the best recruiting tool I ever had. That next year when we started back up, not only did I get more talent in my business, but I also got introduced to other departments that I wasn't working in. So when that plant started back up, year 4, I went from year 1, 3 convicted ex-felons and myself in a truck that wouldn't pass E-check, to the biggest industrial cleaning company in AK Steel in Middletown. And
mm.
it just by being financially responsible, not living past my means, and taking care of my people, right? That was the complete secret to my success.
Wow.
Got it. Got it. Something that I want to highlight that you mentioned before about the tortoise, right?
Yeah.
I like to paraphrase things in case people, because the tortoise is slow. But think about
Mhm.
if you have a crock pot meal, something that's been slow cooked, and you have a
Yeah.
fast food McDonald's meal. When you have that McDonald's meal, it might be satisfying in the moment, but 3, 4 hours later, you're going to be hungry again because it's not filling. But that crock pot meal, that meal that's been seasoned, that's been nurturing hours over hours over hours, That's going to be a lot more satisfying and filling meal. It takes longer to get the meal, to make the meal, but the reward on the other end is a lot more and greater than that McDonald's that you would have got because it was a quick, easy meal to have. So I kind of put that into perspective of how you just shared, right? Like you were always thinking of the future, not just thinking in a moment. And that is a good point. A lot of people are living just in a moment and not for what's going to be. Think about these Fortune 500 companies. If you're looking at their balance sheet, you're wondering why they keep Apple's keeping hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's to plan for the what if scenario, not just the here and now scenario. So if that's what they're doing, why not small businesses do that? Keep a balance sheet where there's
Yeah.
money just stashed away.
It was
There's
something
going to come
else.
hard times, right?
Yeah, it was something else you mentioned. You said this a couple of times about Tyler as well as yourself. And I just want you to clarify. So you all worked at a steel plant at 15 years old.
Yes.
I is there any labor laws? Was that just the times? Is that a state thing? Now I thought about that. Like a steel mill.
You can't
I'm
do
thinking
that
about
now.
here now, today's date, huh?
You cannot do that now. No.
Okay,
There
got it.
there are
So,
laws against that now. I'm sure you'd probably have to be 18. It was a little lax back then.
got it. Okay, okay. Yeah, but that built some grit, I would assume, right? With being to have that heart. I'm pretty sure, as you mentioned, Tyler didn't get to live his youth the way most kids live their youth, but it helped fast forward him as far as work ethic and that mindset. While other kids are probably playing like tag or football in the street, Tyler's in there grinding, right? So put some years and heads and shoulders over his peers. So there is some value to that. To say if it was a
Yeah.
value as far as being able to have some nostalgia from your youth, I don't know, but okay.
But I want to mention something. And for those of you that's probably just watching us live, right? You know, Phil did not come, he was not raised with a silver spoon in his mouth, right? So he mentioned being raised on a farm in a small town in Ohio, right? Dysfunctional family. And a lot of times when we see individuals that are very successful, right? Because, we can certainly take clips out of this podcast and just, you know, magnetize the part where you talked about how Tyler came to you and said that, hey, he's ready to start this business, and needed, an investment of $1 million, right? And to say that you were able to cut $1 million check, but what you asked for them. And most people may look at that and say, man, he probably came from privilege, probably came from money, right? But for you to have worked so hard as a young kid, 15, 16 years old as a young kid, and to have the mindset that you did not allow your environment or your upbringing to dictate, you didn't conform to that, right? So you saw what was happening and then chose a different route and chose the route of working yourself out of it, but also listening to the employees of the steel mill as a young teenager, realizing that, hey, if something's going to change, you couldn't go the same route they were going, right? So my
Absolutely.
question was for you, because Tyler had you.
Hmm.
Did you have a mentor? Was there someone that pulled you to the side? I'm not sure if you all saw the movie The Forge, but it kind of reminded me of The Forge a little bit. So was there someone that pulled you to the side and said, Phil, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to show you the business side of this business, right? Because from an employee side, from working on steel and whatever it is you had to do. I want to show you how to manage books and the accountings and payrolls and things like that. Did you have someone to kind of walk you through those phases?
I did not, which I think is why I'm passionate about trying to help other people as you grow up. At that point in time, you were considered a competitor. So no one wanted to help you, at least not in the steel plant, right? I learned it all hard knocks.
Wow.
My wife helped me figure, when you got to figure out how you get workers' comp, how do I do if the tax, how do we do all this? I mean, I worked Monday through Friday, sometimes through Saturday, Sunday, we paid our bills and worked in the office. And if it needed to be done through the week, my wife packed probably both of our kids at that point in time and went and asked questions, sat in line and just figured it out. Yeah, how do you get insurance? What kind of insurance do you? There's so many questions in business that you can YouTube it today, but back then there wasn't a YouTube, right?
Right. Right. Wow. Man. So your
And
wife
the
worked with you. So basically
Mhm.
your business partner was your wife, right?
Yes, and she did not get compensated very well. But no, we were a team. Quite honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without her.
Gotcha.
And then as I grew and I got so busy that I couldn't pay the bills by myself, I didn't have the time. She then became the accounts payable and accounts receivable person, all while basically raising my kids mostly on her own. So
Wow.
yeah, it was
Mm.
teamwork by all means.
Yeah, yeah. And Tyler kind of mentioned that. He kind of mentioned, when you all started the company, that you all had multiple hats, right? So
Yeah.
you all had so many different hats until you were able to hire people, to bring people on to fill those positions. But up until that point, you all spent years of, maybe 3 to 4 hats each, right? Can you talk about
Yeah.
that for people that's looking to start a business and they may want to hire employees right out the gate, right? So can you talk about those sacrifices and playing multiple roles as you start your business? 'Cause I think that's important for our viewers to know.
Sure. I mean, again, I think it's part of being financially responsible. You can only afford so much overhead, right? So when you start out with 4 people, I can't afford someone to be my accounts payable, my accounts receivable. That was me. As I grew to 20 or 30, my wife came on and started helping me, but we didn't really I didn't bring anybody into the office to help me until we moved. We went from one facility to 2 steel plants, and one was in Butler, PA, and one was in Middletown. At that point in time, I brought in someone to help us in the office. I've always been very cautious of overhead because it can grow on you. And if you allow it to get too much and too far ahead of you, it eats all your profit. So it's something to be very wary of. And the other thing you said about wearing multiple hats, there's nothing wrong. You don't just have to have one person that is accounts payable. If you're at a medium size, they can do 3 or 4 things for you. So figure out how to work that in. I had guys that were working for me in the plant 3 days a week and may do something off the record for me 2 days a week to keep me from having to bring in an extra person and cover their benefits and everything else. It's all part of being very frugal with your money coming in and out, which again allows you to pay your employees more, which keeps your employees with you, right? They want success too. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur, but everyone wants to be able to control their destiny, right? So give them that opportunity. But hey, you might have to wear 3 hats. You might have to put 60 hours worth of work in 40, but we'll figure out how to compensate you for that. So you can be successful too, just in a different way. And I had a lot of guys that wanted to do that.
That's good.
I'm blessed. I mean, truly, it's not an easy industry. You get guys working, you're asking them to work 70 and 90 hours a week. That it takes a different rare breed to do that. And I was lucky enough, again, I found my two finding the right partners is so important, right? The 2 guys that started with me, and I was out working, so I could always find the guy that was, again, like Phil, like Tyler, never got a chance. No one thought you were going to be anything. I found 2 of those guys at the beginning of my first business in the industrial cleaning. They were with me for 15 years. Both convicted felons when they were 18 years old. No one thought they would be anything. They made a mistake young. They wanted a second chance and they wanted a better life, and they were not afraid to work for it. And the 3 of us made each other very successful. And I don't think I could have done it without either one of them.
Wow.
Hmm. I got a question. So, and this is actually, we're about to do a mini mastermind right now as I brainstorm. So, I've been back and forth when it comes to the salary for drivers, right? And I've been trying to create some type of metric to say, okay, this level of experience means this extra quarter or 15 cents per hour in case. you mentioned, and I've experienced it as well, right? That you will pay salaries that would be higher than competitors. And I'm wondering, was there a formula that you used to determine, all right, I'm paying higher than my potential competitors, but it's not going to cost me to be in a negative some way, somehow in the long run? Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah. So for me, the difference between your business and mine would be I worked for a T&M rate in the plant. So I kind of had an hourly rate that I knew I could pay. But I took that whole salary and I looked at it as like an NFL salary cap. So if I could bring talent, if I could bring someone that was really good and could help me bring in business, I would lose on them to be able to bring them in. And if they had 3 to 5 people that were working underneath them that they could supervise, then I would make the money back up on those 3 to 5 people. Um,
Mm,
the other thing
Man,
really that separated me and helped me so much was profit sharing. I mean, my group all year long, and they knew, like, it's good to be able to tell your guys that you're the lowest paid person in the company. That is a good selling point for your employees. Now, don't feel sorry for Phil. I made a boatload of money at the end of my career, but at the end of the year, I always set aside 35% to profit share of the profits. Now, if I that was before I bought equipment. So I pay my people first, my equipment second, and Phil third. Um, but you go out and pay guys, back in the 90s, $10,000 bonus at Christmas time. It changes their family's
come
life,
on,
right?
Phil. Come on,
It,
Phil. Wow.
that's and you know who got the most joy out of that? This guy.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing nicer than doing that when they've worked that hard for you and you can hand them a check. And my good guys made way more than that. But I mean, if you worked for me all year long, you were getting that at the end of the year.
Mark
mm,
Cuban. I was just listening to his interview, and he talked about when he sold his companies. That's what he did. He gave his employees a bonus, right?
Yeah,
And so when he just sold majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks, he spent 35 million on his employees to give them bonuses.
I love that.
He said,
So
"Don't."
I'm not.
Yep. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm not Mark Cuban, but when I sold that first business, I did the same thing. If you worked for me for 10 years, I don't care if you were the lowest guy if you stayed with me for 10 years, everyone's goal, again, in my industry, no one wakes up and says, I want to be a water blaster when I grow up, right? You've made a wrong turn in life somewhere. But those guys they're working heroes too. Just because they made a mistake young, their goal was to have a home. That's what they wanted. So lowest totem pole, my guy got a $25,000 bonus when I sold. My two guys that again were convicted felons when they were 18 and no high school diploma, both got their GED from me, and they both walked out of that as millionaires. And that is the greatest story I have in my business career.
man, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And they deserved
Yeah.
every penny of it.
Wow.
But yeah, I wanted my group, and I sold to a really cool company. They're still working for that company, which is
So
rare. And
so they became millionaires and
yeah,
still remain employed.
yep.
Wow, man.
man.
Well, they're making good money.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the industry standard, they're killing it. Those guys are making really good money right now. So they're greedy and they
So
don't want to let it go.
so
And they're
here's a
younger than I am.
So Phil,
yeah.
real quick, are you saying I should stay another 8 years so I can be able to profit share?
I, I, I would love to have you. No, you're doing exactly what you need to do. I'm very proud that you're doing that. And I hope I can help you in some way in
Man.
your career.
So Phil,
I
here's my
appreciate it.
question for
Appreciate
you.
it.
Business owner to business owner, right?
Mhm.
When would you say is a good time for a business owner to sell their business?
Mm,
Ooh, um, that's a really good question because I would say this: you make more money keeping your business than you do selling it. I sold the industrial environmental cleaning business because I was burned out. I was just wore out. I only knew one way to run it. Again, most of the lessons, you asked me who my mentors were. Most of my lessons were from watching people do things that I knew I wasn't going to do. All the owners that showed up with clean clothes and never worked with their people, that wasn't me. I worked in the hole with my guys. I worked with them. Um, I didn't ever expect any of my employees to do anything that I didn't do or hadn't done. And you earn a respect with that group by doing that. But by the time I was, let's see, if that was 14, I was 48 years old. The hours and the wear and tear had and I'd grown this thing I grew it into a monster, quite honestly, that I didn't know how to run anymore. It was running me. And I had a group that came along that I trusted. They seemed like good people, and they ended up being good people that wanted to buy my pain and suffering. So for me, I'll give you my analogy. At AK Steel, they were brutal on their contractors. I was in 2024, I'd been in there for 15 years. There was not another contractor that had been there for 15 years. I always said, when they call you into a meeting, they're wrong, they rip you, and you don't thank them for it, it's time for you to go. And it was time for me to go. And quite honestly, the other thing was, when you were a contractor, it's like being an NFL coach. You're hired to be fired. No one got I got to write my final chapter in there. And that's something that one of the things I'm most happy about. My group, I had all these people and families working for me, right? I couldn't leave because I was responsible for them. Being able to pass them off to another responsible owner was a nice feeling.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew, I think you just know. And there's times you get burned out, right? So if you're a business owner, you know this. You have to carry a weight that not many people know. So one of the things I will share with you guys is I finally got my break at 33 years old. I started my business in October of 1999, and I'd been fighting some kind of illness. December of 1999, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So the first 6 months of my business, I went through 2 brain surgeries. You realize, as a business owner, it's every emotion in the book, right? There's joy, there's pride, there's also anxiety, exhaustion. You are going to, if you want to be a business owner, you're going to feel all of those. And you have to be ready for that. Because when you own that business, you don't get to sit on a couch for 30 days and recover. You got to get up in 3 days and figure it out. That's not easy. And I think when you get to the point where you can't do that anymore and you can't be responsible to your employees, it's time to go, right?
Wow. So
Mm.
you work hard. Phil, do you get to play hard? Like, what is it that you do to enjoy life? We know that you love serving, you give back, but what is something that Phil does that most people may not even think that you do on your downtime?
Oh gosh, I hate that I'm the most boring human being that you know. I am such the same guy. So I like to work out. You know, when I was sick, I got that taken away from me, and I made a pact. I swore, prayed, if I ever get another chance, I'll never take advantage of that again. I love to work out. I'm a homebody. I have I have 4 grandkids now. Just had my fourth. I go home and hang out with my family. I work out. I hang out with my family. I have a great fantasy football league that's been together for 18 years. That is a blast. And that's it. So I indulged. I bought a 76-acre property this year. And so my comfort is work, right? I think the one thing I'm always concerned about is, what am I going to do with myself when I retire? I'm honestly a little bit afraid of retirement versus can't wait for it. I think this will be something that I can work and do. Um, and that'll give me some joy. I'd like to be able to get my family all on that property at some point in time. But I'm sorry. I didn't get into this business to make a bunch of money to blow it. I live a great life. We have great vacations.
Yeah.
I take my family on vacations when we go. If you met me on the street, you wouldn't know that I'm successful. I'm just an average guy that's came from nothing and is very thankful for what I have. And I don't need that much.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. So we always end the podcast, Phil, asking everyone, what is your 1 to 5 year goals for your business?
Hey,
Okay.
Randall, we forgot to ask him
Yeah.
about failure.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's a good one. I know you got a good one, Phil. I know you got a good one.
Man, I've failed a million times in my life. It's one thing that I probably should come up with a better story. So this is the one thing I will tell you. I don't have one specific horrible failure, but I will tell you that anybody in business fails constantly. Winning and being right is not a part of business. It's when you fail, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and going back at it again is the most important thing that you can do in business. I had a failure or something go wrong weekly in my business. How many times I was right on the edge of not working at AK Steel, I can't even tell you. 30, 40, 50 times, an employee having a safety incident. Those times you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, go take the beating, and go back and do it again the next day. So I don't have one, but I can tell you I've failed 1,000 times in my career. Just no
Uh,
major failures.
You just made me think of something.
Oh,
Winning
you know what
is the
failures?
direct result of overcoming failure. That's
Come on.
all winning
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely.
Overcoming failure.
That's a great
Man,
way to put it.
I'm about to have some nice posters up in my office at work. At the be like when drivers come in, be like, winning is a direct result of overcoming failure. Man,
Perfect.
boy, listen. Let me get up on Amazon right now, figure out how to make a post on that, right? Man. But Phil, yeah. So Phil, 1 to 5 year goals. What do you see in your future?
Oh, well, my wife wants me to slow down, so I'm not really sure. I'm still running my machine shop and weld shop. I will tell you this, in my business, I really didn't, I worked on a 30-day contract my whole life. So for me, I ran my business to always try to make the right decisions, put myself in a position to take advantage of anything that. So when I was running my industrial cleaning company, this machine shop and weld shop came available because a guy was losing it. He was going bankrupt, and I bought it because it was an opportunity. Um, to me, I ran my business a year at a time. At the end of the year, I wanted to make sure that I took care of my employees. Um, and that was it. I really didn't have, I just wanted to run the business the right way. I didn't have any year goals. I didn't want to gain a certain amount of, I want to double every year. I don't want to double my employees. I just wanted to run it the right way. So I wasn't good with yearly goals. I apologize. I'm going to fail you on this one. But mine were everyday goals of running a business the right way.
So in other words, if you ran the business the right way, business would take care of itself and take care of everybody else that works for the business.
That's a much better way of putting it. Thank you.
Man.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Phil,
Yeah.
man. I'm thinking the title of this podcast is going to be Take a Pay Cut for Opportunity. That's what I think the title is going to be. What you think, Don? Phil, what y'all think of that title?
I love it.
It's man, we got so much out of it, man.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we had asked Tyler, right, and it speaks to relationship and the
Mhm.
fact of how you was willing to, because he talked about how you was there for his father, right, and then you talked about how you had these ex-felons who you hired. Let's just be honest, the world would not have hired them, right? They probably
Right.
look down on them and say, "Nope, I don't want you for whatever the reason being," right? Um, but he talked about that relationship, and so the question that that we had asked him was, "Man, how did you feel comfortable, you know, going to Phil and saying, hey, I have this idea, but it's going to cost $1 million,"
Hmm.
right? Because I'll be honest, like me and Randall, we find it challenging just to ask people to be a sponsor, right? So we were like, man, how did you have the guts? But it really wasn't. It really wasn't the guts. It was the relationship,
Right.
right? It was. It
Absolutely.
was. It was the relationship that you all had. So relationship is key, everyone. If you're watching, just know relationship is key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
Phil, thank you for coming on. Thank you for
It was a
the wealth
pleasure. I
of
really
knowledge.
enjoyed it.
Yes, sir, man. Phil,
Yeah.
hold tight, man. We're gonna need you to do a couple more things for us. We're gonna come right back to you.
You got it.
Brother.
Man.
Man. I
Hey, that was more than that was a master class. That's what
it
I'm
was,
that
man.
that should be
The title,
the
that's gonna be the
Forte
title.
master class.
That's gonna be the
That
title.
should be
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
yeah,
Man,
man.
you I don't know, man. It was, that was a listen. See, we have said this to you all. For those of you watching the Forte podcast, right? You need to take notes. It's everyone that we're bringing on is bringing gems, and Phil started out like I apologize. I had to pump the brakes a little bit because he was just dropping gem after gem after gem, and I just didn't want any of it to go over your head. So Randall, let me ask you this, man. Give me your one takeaway. What's your one takeaway? What you got?
My one takeaway, and actually it's already takeaway that I had Phil at my going away for when I left the company, and he was kind of giving me some words of wisdom as far as when I started this company, Gift Transport. He said, make sure that you always pay yourself last. And that stuck with me, right? That made me think even more of as far as how I'm structuring the payroll and all of that. So it wasn't I took away from this, but I took away from the conversation we had. Maybe I think it's been over a month now. But yeah.
Yeah, man. For me, man, that's that statement, when he said to Tyler and them, right? Are you basically willing to make the sacrifice? Are you going to be committed, right, to serving with delayed gratification? Because most people, when they're ready to become business owners, right, they're thinking about immediate gratification, what they can go buy, what vacation they can go on, right, how they can go splurge. And he's basically telling these guys up front that, okay, I understand. You're telling me this is how much it's going to cost, right? From a monetary standpoint. And then he communicates back to them what it's going to cost them to be successful. Just think about that. Like, okay, you're asking me for a check. Got you. You know those numbers. But now I'm going to communicate to you the sacrifice that it's going to cost you. And for those of you watching and you're looking to, be a successful business owner, right? And I know that social media has found its way to glamorize, entrepreneurship, right? There's so many people that's posting, all these great things, and he talked about it. Failure happens almost, if not every week, right? Every other day, every month, every year, there's something that's going to challenge your faith. There's something that's going to challenge to say, all right, you sure this is what you want to do? Right. And so for him to communicate to them that, listen, this is what it's going to take. You're going to have to wear multiple hats. Right. And you have to be willing to pay yourself last, but you have to be willing to live differently from everyone else. So it's going to change. It's things are going to change. Right. You'll get to that place. He talked about acquiring 76 acres. I heard that. I forgot to give him the horn on that because that was a plus by itself, right? But you don't get to that in year one. For those of you watching, you don't get to the 76 acres on year one. You don't get to, the private jets and all these things that you're seeing people talk about and glamorize, right? Those things, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of sacrifice. Are you willing to put in the work? And are you willing to pay your employees when you get to that point more than you pay yourself? Man. Whew.
Man. Hey, all I gotta say is, what's your forte?
What's your
man?
forte? We out of here, man. This was good. Y'all make sure y'all go subscribe. Go ahead, Randall. I don't know what else to say.
Like, subscribe, the Forte community, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You don't want to miss out on continued gems like you experienced today on this Forte Masterclass. Let's go.